Shyama, thank you so much for being here today.
Hi, Sunny. Thank you for having me today.
Yeah, of course. We introduced you and we talked about, your experience as a coach, your life experience. But here we're to talk, can't cut that part out. Today we're here to talk about relationships. So let's get into it. At what point did you notice that you were no longer happy in your relationship? Was it like a one-time thing, or was it kind of like adding up and you're just like, oh wow, like now I see the writing on the wall, like I have been unhappy for a while. What was it?
I had coming from an Indian culture. I
Mhm.
It was an arranged marriage for me.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
it was not a love marriage. And I was married for nearly a decade. I
Hmm.
was not happy almost throughout my married life,
Hmm.
but I never realized I was not happy because in my mind, that is how life is supposed to be after you get married. So
Hmm.
I had almost given up on being happy without even knowing it.
Oh, okay. So it's kind of like this is just how life is. It's just too bad. Like I guess it's more like this is just what we gotta do, right? Like for example, we all know we have to work. We don't question it too much, right? It's like you gotta work. Yeah, you can pick a career you love, but we have to work, and we don't really negotiate that. So was that kind of the same kind of mindset? Like this is just a part of life. This is supposed to be this way.
Yeah, I mean, I used to think that this is how I'm going to die, right? This is my life.
Mhm.
This is my purpose of life
Yeah.
to serve my husband, my in-laws, my daughter.
Uh-huh.
That is the purpose of life. I was very unhappy. We did have a lot of arguments, and there were times when I was like, I just want a divorce, but
Yeah.
I never really meant it. But I said it a couple of times. I just want to get out of this marriage, but never really truly meaning it.
Okay. And then, let's kind of dive into the, I guess, unhappiness. Like what did that look like for you?
It was just lack of being happy, lack
Mhm.
of having a jest for life,
Yeah.
accepting less and less and less out of life. It's
Yeah.
almost like, your expectations are here before you
Uh-huh.
get married. And as you start going through life, your expectations keep going down. It's almost
Hmm.
come to a stage where it's negative. So I have no expectation. If once in a month we had a nice outing, that
Yeah.
used to be like, oh, wow, it's great. I'm happy.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Oh, sorry, I just want to check. Is your connection okay? Because I just noticed some like every few words are cutting out.
Oh, right. I can hear you
Oh,
properly.
really? Okay. Because yeah, I noticed like not every second word, but every like 10th or 15th word is cutting out. Like I know
Oh,
what you're saying, but I can just because I can see it from like I can read it from your lips, but just for like the audio, would you mind
okay.
checking your connection?
Yeah, it's saying completely fully connected on mine, and I've got a fiber optic connection, so it's pretty good actually.
Okay, okay. I think it should be fine then. Let's see. Mine's good too. Okay, ready to resume?
Yeah, yeah. I was just checking my speed. It's pretty good.
Good. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you were mentioning like you had outings every now and then, and that I'm assuming it was fun for you, but like when you finally okay, so when you decided, okay, I'm unhappy with this, what was the first set of action that you took?
So I think I kind of knew I was not happy, so it led to a lot of arguments and a lot of
Hmm.
built up of resentment. So it's
Yeah.
naturally not a good place to be in. So my ex-husband and I were getting into a lot of arguments on a very regular basis.
Uh-huh.
But what was also happening is that we were never able to to make peace with any of the arguments. So those one argument led to another, and it was
Yeah.
all open, and it just kept building up instead of, okay, we had an argument, let's find a way to sort it out and move forward. So we just kept building it up without really concluding any of our arguments or without really finding a resolution to any of our arguments. So it had just
Mhm.
become a perpetual way of living.
Oh wow. Well, yeah. So not really addressing too much what was going on. Um, then when did things like that, like obviously you mentioned resentment there, and I talk a lot about that in like a lot of my coaching and my page. when were situations that the resentment took over? So in other words, when were situations where what you were feeling inside actually came out in your words to your husband?
Yeah, it came out a lot, but I didn't. I think I didn't really take notice of it, and
Mm-hmm.
this is where for a lot of my married life, I never listened to myself. I
Mm,
was
yeah,
everything was telling me I'm not happy.
yeah,
My body was telling me I'm not happy. I was just not happy, but I wasn't listening to myself, to my body, to my intuition. I
yeah,
was letting life pass by. And luckily for me,
yeah.
he cheated on me. So I think
Oh,
obviously because we were so unhappy, he kind of left. He cheated. He left me for another woman. And even at that point,
uh-huh.
again, coming from the background we're in and the way we are brought up, especially as women,
Yes.
divorce is is not is not something that we welcome. So when he said, okay, I want a divorce, I was like, no way, I'm not giving you a divorce. I was holding on to him for my dear life,
Mm-hmm.
in spite of the way I was being treated, in spite of the fact that he doesn't like me, in spite of the fact he said a lot of nasty things to me, and I was like, no way, no way, no way.
Yeah.
And I think one of the excuses that I was holding on to was, my daughter is only 5 years old. It's not good for her. We can't get divorced.
Mm. And was a little bit of it just that perception, like you said, of divorce, like you didn't want to get divorced because it's not common in, the culture and just what other people think. Was that kind of also a factor as well?
Yeah, I think there was a lot of I would say the underlying belief system
Yeah.
that we've lived with for most of our lives, that
Hmm.
divorce is not good, that it's not good for my daughter as a
Yeah.
5-year mother, it's not good for my daughter if we get divorced. Um, and a lot of things, what are people going to say? I mean, that was a factor for sure. And also when you go through something like this, and especially when he cheated, he found
Uh-huh.
somebody better than me. All my
Yeah.
insecurities came up because suddenly I was not good enough. I was not
Mm.
pretty. It was all my fault. In my head, I'm thinking, oh my God, I need to sort this. I need to fix this. It's my fault. I shouldn't have done this. I shouldn't have spoken to him like this. I shouldn't have argued with him.
Wow. Yeah. So was it like fair to say that you were kind of already unhappy before you found out he was cheating on you, but then it kind of you put it back on yourself like, oh my God, I should have done more, I should have done better. So it was hard for you to see, I guess, the faults that he had done.
Yes. And I think the one thing which we were talking about, Sunny, is
Yeah.
at some point he left. He made a choice, and I can't
Uh
thank him enough for doing
yeah,
that. But
yeah.
at that point, I really tried very hard to hold on to him. I
Hmm.
tried to get him back, in spite of the fact that he was living with another woman.
Yeah,
I tried to get him back. So my self-worth was really mopping the floor at that point,
yeah.
where I was willing to accept somebody who doesn't love me, who's already been with another woman, who doesn't care about my feelings. Why am I even accepting him back in my life?
Hmm.
But then at some point, I realized, I think it was about a year or year and a half, what I had this aha moment that I never respected myself enough.
Yeah,
How was I expecting him or his family to respect me?
yeah.
And that is when I realized the fact that I'm in a relationship which is not making me happy has got nothing really to do with him or his family. It's got everything to do with the relationship I had with myself at that point.
Wow, that's so powerful and so true. Sorry, I'm just gonna pause here again.
Okay.
So while you were going through this, what was like the reaction and support from, your parents and other family members or, siblings or anything like that?
Sunny, sorry, I missed the first few seconds of what you were saying.
Oh, did it freeze?
Yes.
Okay, maybe I'm gonna change back to the other connection. One second. So as you were going through this, what was the reaction and support for like family, from friends, your parents? How was that?
So as you said, one of the things that was bothering me is what are people going to say? So I
Yeah.
almost tried to stay away from as
Uh,
many people, except for a few closed one. And I know with India, Indian families, even a few close ones are quite one too many. But I actually, and it was also a thing. So when I was married, and because I was so unhappy with my life, I almost lost touch with my dear friends. So I was not in touch
Oh,
with them for them to know how unhappy I was. I
yeah,
wasn't very close to my family. I wouldn't discuss my personal matters too much with them. So
yeah,
nobody, and because I'm living in England and my
mhm,
family is back in India, it was
yeah,
easy.
yeah,
Nobody really knew the depth to which I was unhappy or how things were bad. So
yeah,
nobody could point it out to me to say, Ashley, have you thought that this is not really the kind of life you should be living?
yeah. And I think like again, I'm just based on what you're telling me and this conversation we're having so far, it's kind of like if you don't think it's a problem, how are like you probably are not going to go to other people and say, yeah, this is happening in my household, this is happening in my relationship. Because if you don't see it as a problem in your for yourself, you're not how are other people like obviously if someone comes over, they might be able to see or read things like that. But again, your interaction was again limited because of different countries. But I think like as an individual or in anything, I think if we don't see something as a problem ourselves and someone asks us like a general question, hey, how is life? Any problems or any issues? You're not going to probably bring that up because you don't see it in your own mind.
Yeah.
So it's kind of
And
hard.
and to add to that, I think there was another element, being again in the Indian community.
Yeah.
I had this belief that I'm responsible for my husband's image in front of my family.
Oh, wow.
So I was trying not to badmouth him and
Yeah.
trying to be the good wife and the good housewife
Yeah.
by sharing my problems with my family and my friends, because
Hmm.
that would make him look bad. And it's my responsibility to make him look good.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I think to some extent that is good. I think you should have your partner's back in situations like that. But I think if it's like at the expense of your own mental health, your own um happiness, your own health, then that that's very detrimental. And I think that's where. But I think you're putting in the context of like within the South Asian community. I think that's a really big thing. And I think like the other thing is your own individual image was just submerged into what your husband was and his family. You didn't really have, it seems like, um your own identity anymore. And I guess it didn't help that your family was like in a different country, right? So you were kind of almost your image was merged into his.
Yes, in a lot of ways. Actually, Sunny, at some point, I had started earning more than him, and I
Hmm.
had a good career. So for a very long time, we had probably similar incomes. At some point, I exceeded, and
Yeah.
I had income, but I almost try to hide the fact that I'm earning more to give in to the same fact that his image is my image, and um, I was almost like putting myself down.
Oh wow.
He looks good,
Yeah.
and this is where the relationship with myself came, is like there was no need for me to put myself down.
Yeah.
Yeah, because and that's why my own respect was not there, my own love for myself was not there, because I was very happy to tell people, oh, I'm not earning so much, he's the main breadwinner, etc., etc.
Wow. Did you feel guilty when you were earning that money in a way?
I did. I did.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
and
That's
And I think that's the thing. I
yeah.
felt guilty because I had a good career, which is why I overcompensated in the marriage. So I picked up all the household chores like Indian marriages are. I did all the household chores, even in London. I did I picked up everything for my daughter as well. So the school runs, everything else. It was just everything was on me, and I did it more and more to compensate for the fact that I'm earning more, that I have a good career.
Wow. Talking about everything we talked about so far, like how did you cope with this, or did you not cope? Like, did you just kind of again ignore it, right? Like, were you like obviously, you may have not identified it consciously that okay, I'm really struggling here, I'm not happy, but I'm sure there was ways that you were coping without thinking about it. And if you were, what were those? What were you doing?
Um, you said it right, Sunny. I wasn't really coping. I was just becoming a person that I didn't like. Like my daughter
Mm.
was 5 year old, and all she had to do was a drop of drop a glass of water and I would start screaming at her. And this is
Wow.
what kids do, right? They
Yeah.
drop water, they do things because they don't know any better. And this is their childhood. I was kind of taking it away from her. I was becoming a mother that I didn't identify with. I was not liking who I was. But again, I kept telling myself, this is how life is.
Hmm.
And I kept adding more pressure on myself. So, oh no, I have to become a good mother. Oh no, I have to become a good housewife. Oh no, I
Yeah.
still have to make a career. So I kept adding the pressure on myself. And this is what I say, thank God and thank you to him for leaving me, because otherwise I didn't know that life can be any other way.
Yeah, yeah. It's like I think sometimes in life we get forced into a corner, and sometimes it's a good thing, right? Because who knows, where you would have been, right? Like at if that had not happened, obviously, like I don't wish that upon you. Like I don't think we wish being cheated on upon anyone. Like I don't think it's that. But you're saying it yourself that it was kind of a blessing in disguise. It seems like,
Yes, it was
right?
definitely, yeah, a
Yeah,
blessing. It was a
yeah.
very painful blessing, but it
Uh-huh.
was a blessing.
Yeah, no, and I think that's true. Like, sometimes we think all blessings are like, fruitful, happy, positive, but really it's not like that sometimes. And we might not see it in that moment. We might see it later, like, oh wow, that was, going through that was a very good thing. I think that's it's very important to have that kind of mindset. Um, the other thing I want to ask is, you mentioned you were earning, at one point you were earning more than him. What kept you ambitious on the career side? Because again, there are like situations where, again, generally speaking, women might not work and they'll just be focused on the housework and making everyone happy. Like, how did you have the time to still be ambitious in your career?
I don't think I was ambitious in my career. The fact, so we didn't have a lot of saving. We didn't have a lot of money.
Hmm.
So we were very much hand to mouth for a good part of the married life.
Yeah.
I think so. What kept me going is the fact that he was always um, stressed about not having enough money. And I always saw that as, oh, I need to do something to help him. I
Oh, I
don't
see.
think it was the ambition. It just happened that I was good at what I was doing. And
Yeah.
I thank God for that. But it wasn't the drive for myself, but the drive was more for, oh, he's really stressed out and we need to do something and I need to help him out.
Okay. So when you found out that he was cheating, what was kind of like, what was the middle between finding that out and then eventually divorcing and I guess starting over as a single person?
Um, again, again, I really did not do anything. And if he wouldn't have cheated, if he wouldn't have left the house, if he wouldn't have filed for a divorce,
Yeah.
I wouldn't have done anything, because that is the mindset and that was my belief is, just he'll come back. For a very
Um.
long time, I was thinking he'll come back. The
Yeah.
day I decided that enough is enough is when I heard about her pregnancy. So when I realized that he's going to have another baby with somebody else, that's when I thought it's gone too far for me.
Yeah.
But it was too far for me anyways, even from day one. I was just not willing to accept it and see it for what it was.
Wow. That's so tough. Oh my God. And so at that point, was it kind of like um at that point when you found that news out, was it kind of like, okay, now I need to move on, or was it like a moment where everything leading up to that kind of flashed in your mind, like, oh my God, I've been so unhappy for so long, or did it take you time to finally get to that kind of
Yeah,
mindset?
yeah, I think it took me time to get there. Although the penny dropped at some point, I think probably when I heard the news, I think the
Hmm.
penny dropped. And I think up until that point, I knew a lot of things. And in hindsight, I could see what was happening, but
Yeah.
I was denial. I wasn't ready to accept it. I
Hmm.
wasn't ready to go through the process of going through a divorce and facing the world to say, I was even willing to be in an unhappy marriage just so that I don't have to face the world and I don't have to go through this challenge again. And I couldn't see light at the end of the tunnel. So I didn't know how I would survive by myself with my 5-year-old daughter in a country where I don't have a family.
Wow. Wow. That's really tough. So what ended up finally, changing that and like, to get you to where you are now? Like, how was that journey? Because obviously it was tough, but obviously you're not in that marriage anymore. And I think it seems like you've learned a lot from that. So how did you get to here?
So I think I was always into self-development, even at a young age.
Hmm.
But this whole process kind of fast-tracked my
Right.
self-development. So during the time when I was hoping that he'll come back, I read a lot on relationships and how to get him
Oh.
back. But then I realized it's a lost battle. And then I
Mm.
started, but I had got so addicted to gaining more knowledge that then I shifted gears and I did a lot of reading, a lot of listening. Uh, I used to spend hours just reading blogs and understanding, and this whole self-development journey kind of accelerated for me. And I think this is it has been slow shifts over a
Hmm.
period of time. If anything, I think I'm not the same person that I was 6 months ago. I think even in the past 6 months, when I look back at some of the things I've said and done,
Yeah.
I think I'm growing at such a fast pace.
Uh-huh. Yeah, no, that's awesome. So when you kind of moved on from that, how long did it take you? And I think like, a lot of people always ask like, oh, how long should it take to get through like a breakup or a divorce? And I feel like there's no like golden answer for that. But in your experience, how long did it finally take you to like get over, I guess that, or if you haven't gotten over that, but you've accepted it?
So I don't think I can pinpoint the time when I was finally over,
Yeah.
but I think it was nearly a year when the news came that she's pregnant, and that was when I had decided that I'm no longer going to try and get him back. Once
Hmm.
I made that decision, things happened, and I was surprised. A lot of things happened. It was almost like the universe is kind of working for me. Till the time I
Yeah.
was holding on to it, nothing was working out.
Yeah.
As soon as I was like ready to let him go, things started moving for me. So no, there is, to your point, there is no golden answer. There is no right or wrong of how
Hmm.
long you should take. But what I do want to say is a lot of us sometimes just stay in that for too long. We become
Yeah.
the victim for too long. And
Yeah.
that's not cool. As long as you're trying to get out of it,
Uh-huh.
there's no right or wrong. It might take you 1 week, it might take you 1 month, it might take you 10 years.
Hmm. So, going back to like the family and your parents' dynamic. So when you were ready to, move on and divorce, what was their reaction?
So luckily, so my dad had passed away quite early, so I didn't have my dad around
Oh,
anyways.
okay.
But luckily, my mom, she was very supportive of me. And
Hmm.
I think that is, a, I think it's largely to do with the fact that I wasn't in India. But
Right.
she was very supportive and she was like a rock. Um, she told all the family members not to bother me.
That's
She was
good.
standing there as a wall for me, which I did not expect because I and my mother never got along.
Oh, wow. Mhm.
Yeah, so it's surprising, but I think the one thing that this divorce did is
Yeah.
heal my relationship with my mom,
Wow.
which was really not good before this.
Hmm. Wow. And do you think the relationship wasn't good because of the marriage, or was it other stuff, or?
Oh no, no, no! It's gone. My relationship with my mom has not been good for I don't know how many years.
Oh, okay.
Always not good. So if she would say north, I would definitely go south. It was that kind of a relationship.
Yeah.
Uh, and it was even much before my ex was in my life. So it was much before my marriage. That is
Hmm.
the kind of relationship we shared because she always thought that I didn't give her what she wanted, and I stood up for myself and I did things that I wanted to do.
Hmm.
What was funny is once I got married, the my independence kind of got lost, and I became my mother, how she
Mm.
was in a
Yeah.
relationship. What happened is I became this typical Indian housewife
Yeah.
who's sacrificing and giving and giving and giving.
Right. Oh, okay. So just one second. I'm sorry. Random sound. Okay, so then when, like, how did your mindset change after that? Like, you've gone through this, you've gone through a divorce, you processed it, it's been a year. How did now finally your approach change on, your self-worth, your self-care, and then relationships? How has that all shifted now for you?
Yeah, I think there's been a massive shift. And if you've seen my Instagram post, I speak a lot about my experience as well. I went through a lot of coaching as well. By the way, I couldn't do this by myself. So I had a coach and I had a lot of mentors. So of course, external help was needed. But what I can say is the minute I realized that my relationship with myself was really, really bad, the kind of things I tell to myself in my mind, I wouldn't tell any other person, not even the person I hate. When I started to realize that, I started to change it. My self talk started to change. And I can tell you today, my self worth is very high. My self love, self respect is very high. I'm not going to settle for less anymore. I'm just standing tall in who I am. And I'm very happy. If I'm alone, if I'm with somebody, I'm very happy to be who I am.
That's awesome. I really, love to hear that. And it's just like we were talking about earlier, it was a forced change. Like you had to change, right? Like because there's a situation that, you had no choice but to make a change and do something different. But I'm really happy to hear that the journey this journey has, like you mentioned, it was a blessing, it was a painful blessing, but it's brought you to where you are now, and it seems like you are happier. And I think like this is going to serve as an inspiration for a lot of people who may be in a similar position and don't know what to do, and maybe they necessarily don't have to be hit with their partner cheating with them, but they might just still be in that situation. Like, oh my God, I am feeling unhappy. I don't know who I am anymore. I've lost my independence. So yeah, thank you for sharing this story. It's quite inspirational, and I'm glad we got to connect. Yeah, but before we go, just a few more questions. On the topic of like helping others, what would you say to someone who currently is struggling in a marriage, and they've kind of lost themselves and they've lost connection with their family and friends?
I think the first and the most important thing I want to say is I know I keep saying that life forced me to make this change, but I had another choice. I had a choice to be the victim, become this person who's so depressed and not a good mother to my daughter, and probably go back to India and let my family take care of me. I had this choice to give up on
Mhm.
life. What I want to say is don't give up. You need to take responsibility for your life, and there is always a way out of the situation. There's every cloud has a silver lining. I keep saying that. And you have to find what the silver lining is for you. So don't give up. And I think the second thing is please, please, please listen to yourself. If your heart, your body, your mind is saying something to you, do not
Mhm.
ignore. Do not think that you don't deserve to be happy. You deserve to be happy, and if you're not, do something about it.
That's powerful. Yeah. I guess last question for you is, hindsight, obviously it's always it's always easier to like look back on things and say, oh, I would have done this differently or that differently. But yeah, let's say like you could go back in time. Um, is there anything you would have done differently about the situation on how you handle it?
Nothing, nothing. I think I
Mhm. Yeah,
learned from every mistake I
yeah,
made. I learned from the time I wasted waiting for him.
yeah,
So everything I did, it was almost like life was happening for me. I was getting my lessons. The only thing is, the sooner I got my lessons, the easier it was for me to move forward. And
yeah.
the more I held on to the past, it took much longer.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that approach, that mindset. Like, I think it's like it's a part of the journey, right? It's kind of like you have to go through this to get to the other end. And I think, like you said that, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I can certainly relate. There's a lot of moments in my life I probably wouldn't want to go back and change. There are a few I would, but then I think if you do go back and change them, then that journey, that growth, that development, it's all lost, right? It's not there. So I think I can certainly see where you're coming from. And if anyone listening, they might be like, "What? Why wouldn't you want to change anything?" But I think you learned a lot, and I think that's a valuable lesson that you can only learn through mistakes. So yeah, thank you so much for this conversation. There's a couple things I know you want to mention, but before we get to that part, is there any other thing you want to say? Any other words of advice or anything else?
No, just be yourself, be authentic, be genuine, and know yourself. The more you know yourself, the better your life is going to turn out to be.
Awesome. Yeah. So yeah, let's get into what you were mentioning. You did mention that you do have some free resources that listeners can pick up. Want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So I work a lot with women who are stuck in a toxic relationship or who are going through separation. So I've got this free webinar for women mainly. And a lot of the times, especially coming from the South Asian community, we are kind of, and sharing my story as well, is, we think that we have to choose between a career and our personal lives, or being a mom and being a professional woman who has a good career. But actually, I want to say you can have it all, and you can have it all very happily. You don't have to sacrifice. So this webinar is about those people who think they need to sacrifice. Actually, if this is what you want, you can get all of it, and there's no guilt in having any of it. And so this webinar, please, if you do wish, please go through the webinar. You can find the link on my website, which is coachshama.com, and we'll put the link in the comments as well.
Yeah, I definitely I'll include it as well when this episode is released. Okay. Thank you so much for doing this episode. I really appreciate it. It was great speaking with you.
Thank you for having me.
Of
Thank
course.
you.